So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today at the NIF Total Body PET webinar series. And as Steve said, I'll just be giving a background on ARTnet. So what is ARTnet? ARTnet is the Australasian Radiopharmaceutical Trials Network. And Steve said it was established in 2014 as a joint initiative of Australia's two nuclear medicine professional societies, Australian New Zealand Society of Nuclear Medicine and Australasian Association of Nuclear Medicine Specialists, with a mission statement to promote and facilitate innovative collaborative clinical research utilising radiopharmaceuticals for imaging or therapy. Imaging with radiopharmaceuticals is increasingly recognised as having a key role in multi-centre clinical trials. This is very much happening due to the emergence of a number of new radiopharmaceuticals, and there's a need to assess role and utility of these new agents. But also increasingly, imaging with radiopharmaceuticals is used to evaluate molecular endpoints to improve understanding of tumour biology in clinical trials, leading to more intelligent clinical trial design and rapid drug development. Now, this includes precision-based imaging, such as for patient selection, and also looking for therapeutic responses. So if you're to conduct multi-centre clinical trials with radiopharmaceuticals across multiple sites, it's really important to have standardisation to allow comparability. This is due to variations in sites for PET cameras and imaging protocols. There may be variations in radiopharmaceutical manufacturing and QC, and there are some complexities in data analysis and increasing importance of centralised data review. So by standardising these procedures, you can really strengthen the quality of multi-centre clinical trials. So ARTnet has both an executive and a scientific committee, and the scientific committee comprises nuclear medicine specialists, technologists, radiopharmaceutical scientists, and medical physicists. And the scientific committee has oversight of ARTNet's scientific activities, which include review and endorsement of clinical trial protocols with a focus on the nuclear medicine aspects of the study, development of imaging and radiopharmaceutical manuals, which are usually developed along with the principal investigator of clinical trial. There's a camera credentialing program, which we'll speak about in detail, and Kathy will be giving details of that, a radiochemistry certification program, and in development an imaging data repository and a centralised data review capability. So we realised very early on how important it was to have a camera credentialing program for multi-centre clinical trials. And we found this out when we undertook the Pro-PSMA clinical study looking at gallium-68 PSMA PET. And so we asked centres around Australia to perform a phantom study using gallium-68. And we found, surprisingly, that in 10 out of 14 PET systems assessed, there was an underestimation of SUV by an average of 15%. And this was a very unexpected finding and required some investigation led by Dale Bailey, and eventually was actually found to be due to an incorrect factory setting on a dose calibrator. And so had we never undertaken this phantom study across Australia, then we actually would have had a wide variation in our SUV measurements and had not very comparable data across sites, which would have been really unacceptable for this kind of trial. So why is it important to conduct multi-centre clinical trials? Well, this can allow prospective high-quality data, and this is really highlighted by the Pro-PSMA study. So this study looked at PSMA PET imaging in men with high-risk prostate cancer before curative intense surgery or radiotherapy, and it was a very positive study. So it found, in comparing PSMA PET in this patient group to conventional imaging with bone scan and CT, that PSMA PET had greater accuracy than conventional imaging, more likely to result in management change, less radiation exposure, high reporter agreement, and less equivocal findings. So this was a highly positive study showing the impact of PSMA PET in this patient group. This study recruited from 10 sites all around Australia, shown on the map here. And importantly, it also recruited way ahead of target. So the recruitment was 300 patients, and it actually recruited 6 months ahead of target, which was also a really pleasing result. So when you collaborate, you have the possibility of getting impact and actually influencing outcomes, and outcomes as they relate to patient care. So again, highlighted by the Pro-PSMA clinical trial, the funding application for this went in 2015 to Prostate Cancer Foundation Australia, with the clinical trial commencing in 2017 and 10 sites credentialed around Australia. Recruitment, as I said, was completed ahead of target in 2018, and this led to a high impact publication in the Lancet in 2020. This was incorporated into clinical guidelines internationally in 2021 and 2022. And in Australia, we received funding for PSMA PET imaging for men with prostate cancer, including those for primary staging. And that was from July 2022, which was really pleasing and means that this test is now available for men for investigation of their prostate cancer. And again, this study was highly collaborative and has led to high citation index of 830 citations and was the ACTA Clinical Trial of the Year in 2020. So ARTnet has not only supported imaging trials, it also supported theranostic studies such as the therapy study, also led by Michael Hoffman. This study recruited 200 patients across Australia at 11 sites and randomised to lutetium PSMA versus cabazitaxel. And I'm sure most people will be aware of the results of this study, again, highly impactful. But importantly, ARTnet supported this study and did the camera validation for this study. And this was important because, in fact, the expression of PSMA on the PSMA PET scan was an eligibility criteria for undertaking therapy in this study. So it was required that patients have a PSMA SUV max of greater than 20 at least one site and an SUV max of greater 10 sites of measurable disease and no sites of discordant FDG activity. And these scans were centrally reviewed. So you can see that standardization of the imaging in order to allow comparability across sites is incredibly important in this setting. So ARTnet supports a multi-centre collaborative clinical research. The studies to date have been investigator initiated, so led by the investigators. They've been grant funded and they've been strongly supported by a number of clinical trials groups and widely supported and collaborated with across a range of cross specialties, which has been incredibly important for the success of these kind of studies in Australia. So this is just to show the ARTnet supported clinical trials. There's been a number of these in prostate cancer. There's also the active PET glioma or FIG study, the IFES study of redifferentiation therapy in O131 refractory thyroid cancer, an infection imaging study about to start called SNAP-PET, looking at FDG PET for Staph aureus sepsis, and imaging with quantitative SPECT for cardiac amyloid. If people would like to find out more about ARTnet, there was a short journal article in Journal of Nuclear Medicine 2021 and Michael Hoffman's article calling out to our community in nuclear medicine to conduct these kind of prospective high quality trials.